welcome to LMP Podcasts. My name is Gemma Allen. I'm one of the learning support mentors here at LMP, and I'm joined today with my lovely colleagues, Vic.
Hi.
And Leah.
Hi.
Hello. I don't know why I said that. We're joining you today to have a conversation about personality clashes that you may come across whilst in the workplace. And I think this is probably something that's going to touch a lot of people, regardless of if you're 16 to 18 starting a new workplace or if you've been somewhere for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Can you guys think of experiences you've had where things haven't gone according to plan in the workplace relationships that you've experienced?
I have had personality clashes with my managers. When I was younger, I didn't used to turn up for work, so therefore I used to get verbal warnings and written warnings and things like that. And once I've gone down that route, I've not known how to take it. So therefore, everything after that, I feel like they're picking on me. When they're picking me up to, when they're giving me advice and feedback on how to improve, I've taken it the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
So once you have that little clash or the interpretation of something negative, it's about being able then to try and sort of see the positives out of it, rather than just digging your heels in and having that clash, and then all of a sudden your manager doesn't like you, and then after that it all goes downhill from there.
Do you think though with personality clashes sometimes it's just you can't get on with everyone, and sometimes two people just don't see eye to eye? It's normal, isn't it? Have you ever experienced anything like that?
Yeah, so this person came in to work and just was very like, how can I say, like, you know, you can see the people who are like trying to progress really quickly.
Okay.
Anyway, she became a manager eventually, and she became my manager, and I found it very difficult to get. We just had very different personalities. I found it very hard to make conversation with her, and then I had to be off sick for a little while, and the way she handled it was really bad. I thought she just didn't like me. I didn't really know what I'd done, and then we had an observation. She gave me some feedback. I didn't agree with. I didn't respect her opinion. I thought, you don't really know. You're not a teacher, so I just I eventually left that place, which is probably, it wasn't because of her. I left because I had a new job. I wouldn't have left because of her. I would have just hoped for a new manager eventually, to be honest. But I would just avoid her. I didn't want her to manage me. I would never go to her for help, because I get on with the other managers better, so I'd rather go to them. But even just like sometimes team members, you know, sometimes people grate on you.
Yeah, I've had it before where I've worked with colleagues, even in this role now, where we're both doing the same job, but clearly we both have different work ethics or work principles.
Yes.
And obviously they've obviously clashed, and for whatever reason we never saw eye to eye. And it was one of those things of like, how do I raise this professionally? Is it my responsibility to raise it, or should I be taking this to a manager?
Yeah.
And it becomes almost awkward, doesn't it? Because you don't, that tension that you two have, if you're working in a team, suddenly the rest of the team can feel it as well, because it might be that they're making comments, or you're making comments, and it's going to end up as niggles and nastiness, isn't it? And you don't want that in a workplace.
Yeah, you don't want everybody involved in it. No. You don't want there to be any tension. Like, I think that, you know, you've got to look at it also, does it become bullying, you know, and harassment? And they're very serious things. You don't want that going up to HR, basically. So if you feel like whether you're being bullied or whether you feel like you might be doing it, you need to take a step back and maybe just, you know, sometimes you just go smile and nod. Yeah. And accept that you can't get on with everybody in life.
Yeah, and I think you do need to find a solution. It can't go on, because like you say, it does escalate quite quickly into, you know, talking about people behind the backs, and, you know, saying, do you know that they said this and then they did that, and so on. So I think, you know, possibly a solution for that would be to like write it down. Write down what's happening, what's going wrong. You know, if it is something that's gonna escalate, you can tell your manager. I think it's really important as well to pull that person aside, to meet them on a neutral ground, to just say, look, we're not getting on, can we change things? You know, and just, but I think it all starts with identifying what exactly it is.
Yeah, because does the other person even realise it's
Exactly.
I think for some people I think I've had that experience where I thought, is it me? Am I the villain? am I the bad guy?
Yeah.
But because I can't put my finger on what I'm doing, I automatically blame them.
Yeah.
When actually it could be something I'm doing, but because
Yeah.
I'm perceiving it as being normal
Yeah.
behaviour, I'm not actually taking responsibility for my own actions.
Yeah.
Which I think is very detrimental and very
Yeah.
bad for the team, for the business, for you.
Yeah. It might be worth sometimes, trying to just grab a coffee with that person.
Yeah.
And just like having a chat, because actually you might actually just get on. But if you find that actually that there is something deeper there, then it's like time to take the next steps of like maybe talk to your manager, or writing down instances where you maybe feel like you're being kind of singled out.
Yeah. I think it also depends on who the clash is with. I think it's important to nip it in the bud straight away. So if it's a colleague, have that conversation, have that chat informally, and like you say, if not, write it down, go through the process, tell your manager. But what if it is a manager? What if you're not getting on with your manager, and then your manager has to give you some kind of feedback to do your job properly? You possibly would take that quite negatively.
Well, it's like,
and
yeah,
think
like you
it's
said at
like
the
an
beginning,
attack.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Like you said at the beginning, with when being a 16-year-old and going,
Yeah.
it's that natural response, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, what would I do in that situation if it was a manager?
I think that's where a lot of people struggle, especially if you are new to the workplace or you're new to work, full stop. It's at what point do you then go above and beyond your manager? Because your manager's the big person. It's a little bit scary there, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's how do you approach that? But there are processes in place, and every company will have a workbook, a handbook that will explain policies, procedures, things like whistleblowing. So if you're seeing unsafe practices from that manager, or even just the HR policy on how to raise a grievance. A grievance doesn't necessarily have to be I'm being bullied or harassed. It can be we have got an issue here.
Yeah.
And it's having that confidence to make that step. And if it is becoming something that's affecting you and your ability to do your job, then it's a problem that needs to be addressed.
I mean, it could also just be resilience, couldn't it? It could also be sort of, just reframing how you're thinking.
Yeah.
As a person, you've got negative thoughts about that. So just reframing, thinking about the positives about that person. Getting to know that person. Ask them, what did you do last night? How was your weekend? Getting to know them a little bit more might also help the situation as well.
Yeah.
I think when you were saying before about having that sit down with them and having that conversation and opening the table up and saying, listen, what is our problem here? Because it's both of your problems, isn't it? But once you've identified what that problem is, it's then a case of, right, we need to work on this for the sake of the team, for the sake of the business, for whatever purposes. And I think once you've addressed that, you can then take stock and then make those changes. Mainly to remain professional more than anything, because I think professionalism and not letting it become a me, she said, he said kind of thing.
And taking it outside of work sometimes,
I think, it shouldn't go outside work. It should stay, if it's a problem in work, it stays in work.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important to say, is that if it's moving outside, it's become a bit more than a personality clash.
Yes.
Absolutely, and it's effective communication, isn't it? It's having that open and honest communication of where things are going wrong, or trying to get to know that person to try and overcome whatever barriers you've got there.
Yeah, and I think we've talked about like the whole talking about with other people, but it's not fair to bring other people into it as well.
Absolutely.
Not at all.
Yeah, you're making it an even bigger thing then.
Yeah, if it's a manager to bring in to rectify the situation, absolutely. But apart from that, it shouldn't happen.
No.
Fab. Yeah. So what are our top tips then? So personality clash, if it happens, what are we going to do?
I'm going to nip it in the bud quite quickly. You'll know straight away if you've got a personality clash. You either have to get to know that person or nip it in the bud, and try and nip it in the bud as quickly as possible so it doesn't escalate.
Whereas I take a step back and see if where is the problem coming from? Is it something I'm imagining? Is it something within me? Is it really happening? And then if I realise it is, then start making some notes.
I think my top tip is to remember that you can't get on with everyone. We are human beings. We will never be people pleasers, yes, but we can't please everyone.
Yeah.
And I think remembering that is really important, but recognising when there is a problem and, like you said, deal with it. Thank you very much. See you next time.